Hannah Murray on TRE in the afternoon.
Joining us on the line now is definitely someone with a good heart, Dr Marc Abraham OBE. He's a British vet, author and animal welfare campaigner and now filmmaker. His new film, Dogspiracy, follows him as he investigates puppy mills, canine fertility clinics and puppy smuggling. Across the globe, millions of puppy breeders and rescue shelters supply dogs responsibly, but there's also a sinister world of abuse and exploitation. In America and the UK, he meets decision makers who have the power to change the law, but he eventually uncovers a conspiracy that prevents bipartisan laws from being passed. Welcome to the show, Marc.
Do I say buenos dias or buenos tardes? Where's the line?
That's a really good question. I don't know. You can get away with both with me, no problem.
Okay, thank you, Hannah. Good afternoon, everyone listening, and it's a pleasure to be back and on again.
It's been a while, hasn't it? I was looking back and trying to work out how many times we must have spoken to each other over the years. And when I was watching the film and kind of reminded of your various books and obviously Lucy's Law, which was a massive achievement, we spoke before Lucy's Law was passed, didn't we?
We spoke way before that. Yeah, we must have been speaking for probably about 15 years ago. Maybe even more. Yeah. So one of my little points to not forget is to thank you and all your listeners for all your support over the years, because it really does make a difference. So thank you, Hannah, and all your supporters and fans and listeners.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for everything you're doing. I bet the dogs would thank you if they could talk for the amount that you've rescued and looked after over the years. I mean, this film, I watched it myself over the last couple of days. It is amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
How did it all come about? What made you want to put this film together?
As you know, any media vehicle can really accelerate and I don't know, it's all about getting messaging out there. And when you're a grassroots campaigner, which is exactly why I've just thanked you, because any radio, any TV, any form of sort of getting messages out as a grassroots campaigner is priceless, because we don't have the budgets that the big, for example, corporate charities have. So just before lockdown, a production company came to me. They're based in Prague, and they were making kind of a generic show about dogs. And they wanted me to be just a contributor, like a little talking head. And I read the treatment, which, as you know, is a synopsis of the show. And I just thought we can do better than this in the nicest possible way. So I went back to them and said, look, we can either make a generic show about dogs, or we can make a documentary about dogs that changes the world for dogs and people around dogs. And they were like, oh, hello. We were interested. So they actually came to Brighton, and it was a really sunny day. I took them for a cup of tea on the pier, which I think really was the decision maker. And I said, look, let's make a show that talks about campaigning and about puppy mills in the US. And we meet politicians and we promote rescue. And they were like, yeah, okay. I said, I can get you all the contacts, all the access, location here and in America, using in the nicest possible way, Grace, who you've seen in the movie, of course, who I've been working with for years. And they were like, okay. So I had kind of free reign, and I wrote myself in as the presenter, so I wouldn't have to tell the presenter what to say and what to ask all the sort of the contributors. So we started working on this project a few years ago. It's a 5-year project. It took 2 years to film, and I'm really pleased with it. And I think the difference with any other documentary is that it's filmed. The cinematography and the music is so powerful. So it's not just a documentary. It's more of a movie, I think, than a documentary. And I think it really adds to the emotion. It's not impossible to watch. A lot of people, I think, are scared to watch it because they think they'll see sort of graphic scenes of cruelty, but there isn't that. No. It's more... There's suggestive of that, which I think is sometimes more powerful, but it's more behind the scenes of campaignings, and the frustrations and the fact that just because all the politicians want something and celebrities and dog lovers and even charities, it doesn't always happen. But most importantly, for me, the two themes underpinning this movie are, one, always choose rescue, and the other one is we can all do something. Yeah. Whether it's dogs, whether it's cats, whether it's disabled, elderly, kids, whatever vulnerable group of individuals, we can all do something to help protect them.
Sure.
And I think that was the message as a grassroots campaigner myself, coming from not a campaigning background to where I am now. It just shows that any idiot can do this. And you just have to care about something enough to want to change stuff positively for the future for those individuals.
Yeah. One of the interesting things that came out of the documentary to me that I know you found interesting as well, when you were in America visiting all these pet shops that were all being supplied by puppy mills, which is puppy farming, what we'd call in the UK. When you were going into them, it was only because you knew the background and what these animals would have been through in order to get there. You knew that they weren't good setups and that these puppies weren't being looked after properly. But for someone who didn't know, they wouldn't necessarily think that anything was wrong. They'd go into these pet shops looking for a cute puppy to take home for their family. And they'd go, oh, that one looks nice. That's got a cute smile. He's got sad eyes. Let's take him home, without thinking that anything is wrong. And one of the statistics that came out was that 80% of people in the United States, all the people that are getting dogs, are getting them from these puppy farms or these pet shops that have been supplied by puppy farms.
So it's up to 90% now, which is terrifying. And the word I remember using in the movie is fascinating. And it is fascinating because it's so, this is how it was here before we banned it with Lucy's Law. You could go into a pet shop, there's puppies there, and it's so normalized because the pet shop is licensed by the council. Sometimes they're sold with 4 weeks free pet insurance. Sometimes they're registered with, for example, the dog registration body. So there's lots of sort of endorsements and normalization. So, and another line from the movie is, why wouldn't you buy from here? Because it's so obviously fine in terms of the marketing and the sales patter. However, obviously, if you know the backstory, and anyone who watches the movie or loves dogs and is conscious of their welfare will know, these puppies are removed too early from their mums. Their mums are sometimes thousands away in the Midwest, usually like in Missouri, and they're sold on the East Coast, the West Coast, Pennsylvania, in pet shops. So the puppies have a higher probability of being medically ill, surgically ill, behaviorally ill, problems with their behavior. And also, because we haven't seen the mums, there's no accountability of the breeder. So the mums are stuck in the puppy mills in who knows what conditions, usually agricultural, on straw, in cages, again, licensed by, as we know in the movie, by the American Kennel Club, by the American Ministry of Agriculture, USDA. So the whole chain, as it was here, is completely legal and licensed. There's nothing illegal going on. However, it's obviously compromising animal welfare for the breeding parents, the dads as well as the mums, plus the puppies on the long journeys. And of course, then the welfare of the owners that they end up with, because you've got dogs that are not necessarily broken, but they're so damaged behaviorally, or sometimes they need surgical assistance or medical assistance. Sometimes they get sick and they have to be put to sleep, or they just die on their own. So there's a mental health aspect of this as well. So yeah, it's a huge mess, and hopefully, and a little heads up for your listeners, we're hearing already that this documentary may be already doing a bit of a post office scandal in America, because the senators and the state reps are hearing about it. They know Victoria's law, which your listeners will see in the movie, which is banning puppies in pet stores in Pennsylvania. They know that the senators and the parliamentarians are going to be embarrassed and humiliated. So we have already heard, an exclusive for you, that Victoria's law as a bill is being presented again in this session under a different guise, and has the best chance of passing it's ever had before as a consumer protection bill. So the documentary, even if it doesn't pass, the documentary has already forced that change. Fantastic. So it's a dream for someone like me who wrote Victoria's law in this particular campaign into the movie to get this result. It's up to us now to keep the pressure on the parliamentarians to see it over the line. And I have a feeling it will happen, because no parliamentarian wants to be embarrassed. It's absolute common sense. I think we've got 6 or 7 states in the US who have brought in this law. Obviously, we've done it here. We've done it in Wales, done it in Scotland, almost Northern Ireland. I think the EU have now promised a ban on puppies in pet stores as well. So we are now all enjoying being on the kinder side of history, not the right side of history. It's the kinder side of history, which is accountability, which is puppies. If you're going to buy a puppy, always see him or her interacting with their mum in the place they were born. That's Lucy's Law. Or better still, go to rescue. You've got fantastic rescues near Marbella. You've got AAA, you've got Adana near Estepona. There's puppies there too. And I will also say this, if the first thing you think of is, oh, they're just dogs with problems, let that be a very positive challenge, because over the years, what I've seen, and Lucy's Law Lucy was a dog that had so many problems. She had epilepsy, separation anxiety, cataracts, arthritis. She was a broken little dog. However, the bond between damaged dog, let's say, and adopting owner is so much stronger because you're involved with their rescue and their rehabilitation rather than just buying a sort of a blank canvas puppy. So definitely please consider rescue. If you haven't got a room in your life at the moment, maybe consider fostering, which is like a temporary adoption, and then you get the option to adopt fully after. Share posts online from these rescue shelters. Donate if you can. Take them bedding, food, toys, treats. There's always something we can do. And if there's a campaign that you see that you want to support or start, then do it. Start a petition, meet your local politician, support other campaigns. We've got social media now. It's so powerful. It's absolutely free, and we can make a huge difference just by retweeting something when we're sitting on the loo. So, none of us have an excuse anymore not to do anything. And in an age of finger pointing and blaming and apathy and can't be bothered, or someone else can do it, or it's going to cost too much money, forget all that. It's up to us. Because we can do stuff and we can make stuff happen. Yeah.
One of the things I noticed that was really touching when you say about adopting animals that have, if people are worried about taking on an animal that's had a terrible beginning and they're going to have behavioural issues and things like that. There were a few occasions in the film when you were faced with dogs that were clearly scared and were whimpering and shaking, and it was horrible to see. And it didn't seem to take that long at all to look and feel safe and loved in your arms, when you were picking them up and you were looking them in the eye and gently stroking their heads and, talking to them nicely. It didn't take them long. You could see that they were going, oh, this is nice. This is what I need. This is what I want. And at the end of the day, they just want to be loved.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of dogs, they crave human contact. They hadn't had that before. And as you say, Chloe the Bichon was my favourite. I mean, I don't usually have favourites, but she was so my favourite. You could see her, because they're shut down. All these dogs are shut down, which is when they're behaviourally, overwhelmed. And they literally don't know how to react because there's just too much going on. So you can see, this is the hopeful bit of the film, which director Paul brilliantly put in. So it's not all doom and gloom. And as no spoilers, but there is a really lovely sort of montage at the end. But when they come into the vets and they slowly relax and their eyes slowly start to open and react to things which they've never really done before, it is beautiful. And we can all play a part in that. We can all have a dog in our lives that has a terrible start and is now not shut down and is able to enjoy being outside and running around the garden and actually doing doggy things rather than being stuck in a chicken cage or on straw or in the dark or combination of all three for their whole lives, just producing pups and then being destroyed when they're non-productive.
Yeah, that was another shocking side to the film. The mothers that were literally being used as baby making machines and were there to have as many puppies, as many litters as possible. And then when there was one that wasn't able to stand anymore, so that was the time to let her go. It was like, what? There was another one you picked up and asked what the name of the dog was, and the guy was like, oh, I don't know, we haven't really given her a name. It was like, what? It was just all about money. It was all about money.
It was, I mean, it's a worldwide issue. We focused on a certain population in the States where we could literally get on camera all the, not necessarily the bad stuff, but all the stuff that keeps it going. And that's the Dogspiracy itself. It's the politicians that are complicit. It's the people breeding these dogs that are complicit, why they're doing it, and what are the results of them doing it. So, yeah, I'm incredibly proud of it. It was a real team effort. Some of the most phenomenal campaigners on that movie. I mean, Grace is the biggest hero. What's acceptable these days? The way she drives around the puppy mills, and she's cultivated these relationships with the Amish over the years, and has their trust, and they can hand over these dogs that are no longer needed for breeding, and she rehabilitates them and gets them out for adoption in local rescues. So for me, she is the ultimate hero. But Eileen is in there, and Vanessa's in there, and all these incredible people who aren't linked to these big corporate charities, who are just doing it because it's the right thing to do. Yeah. And as I say, they've got these relationships with people who are maybe unscrupulous breeders and sellers, but if it wasn't for them to be there when the dogs need to be handed over, those dogs would be destroyed. Yeah. So everyone plays a part in rescue, rehabilitation, raising awareness, changing public behaviour, and at the end of the day, improving the lives of dogs and humans.
I struggle to think how they don't understand, but could it be that people running these puppy farms, just because that's the way it's always been done, don't really think or see that they're doing anything wrong? They don't see it as cruelty. They think of it as a business, and they're breeding puppies, selling them on to people who want to take a puppy home. And that's just the way it's always been done, as opposed to really acknowledging what we're doing is cruel.
I think, Hannah, you're absolutely right. I think when you're born into that society or that way of life, or this is how it's always been done, it's very, very hard to change things. But also it's worth stressing that the conditions these dogs are kept in is legal. And that's part of the problem. If a dog is legally allowed to be kept in a small cage, just a few inches bigger than its body, its whole life, then people will straight back argue, well, we're not doing anything illegal. Yeah. And until that changes, it will always continue, which is why Lucy's Law was so important, because it forces the public to see the breeding mum, the conditions they're bred in. And it also alerts the breeder, because they know that the owner's going to be coming expecting to see the mum. So it was always the first step in accountability and transparency, and making sure that people can see the mum in the conditions they were bred. Because the public are the best at policing animal welfare, called policing by consent. So, back in the day, it was if you don't feel comfortable with the situation, walk away. No, don't walk away. No one's going to walk away and leave an animal that's in distress or covered in fleas or has diarrhea. They're always going to rescue it from whoever it is. But once you're doing that, take all the evidence when you're there. So screen grabs of online adverts, what 3 words, location, landlines, mobile numbers, because if that puppy does fall ill, and they often do, as we know, or die, you can retrospectively prosecute and investigate with that evidence. So it's not all over. If you see a sick pup or a sick mum, just take all the evidence you possibly can, then go to the RSPCA, local council, even the police, and then, launch an investigation and potential prosecution. Go to the local paper. The local paper, again, we're going back to what we said at the beginning, media, local media, you guys can make such a difference in terms of blowing a story up, getting attention, getting it noticed, and making a huge difference. And, as grassroots, as a representative of grassroots campaigners in the world, we can't thank you guys enough for talking to people like me and amplifying, that's the word I've been struggling to find, amplifying our messaging and getting it to more people, maybe inspiring people or changing behavior, encouraging people to adopt, whatever, to campaign, because you guys are essential to the work that we do.
Well, one of the other things I wanted to ask you about was cost, that are quite shocking, quite near the end. I can't remember her name, the American, she's a politician. She was the one that said, I don't think of myself as a politician at all, because she was trying to make these changes and they weren't happening. But the cost of the puppies, when she first started to look into it, she said she wanted her husband to drive her around all the different pet shops and things to see what it was like. And she saw this lovely little dog, and it was it $6,000 $6,000, I think, something like that.
A lot of money.
A lot of money. And they said, oh, don't worry, you can pay it off in installments. So it was easier to pay. But then because you're paying in installments, there's penalties. And it would have ended up costing like 12 grand.
That's right.
And she questioned it and said, but what if the dog is sick? Or even worse, what if he dies? You know, what if he's got illness and he doesn't even last a year? And they were like, well, doesn't matter. You've still got to pay us.
Yeah,
Wow.
I think that was my favorite interview, to be in Harrisburg, which is the state capital of Pennsylvania, speaking to Tracy Pendercook, who's a Republican senator, who has dogs because of her PTSD. She was in Desert Storm. She was a helicopter pilot, a Black Hawk helicopter pilot. So she adores dogs and needs dogs. That interview was so powerful because she was incredibly intense and passionate, because it was the injustice of, as they call it, being on the hook, you know, and owing all this money and having the collectors coming around your house if the puppy dies or if the puppy gets ill. And it was a really lovely example of, you know, even if stuff goes horrifically wrong, you've still got to deal with all that, and your family's got to deal with all that. So she was phenomenal. Oh, I mean, they're all phenomenal. All the contributors were phenomenal. And as I say, I'm very, very proud. I hope it makes a difference. We know it is starting to make a difference. I hope it gets Victoria's line over the line. If you are in America listening, and especially if you're in Pennsylvania, contact your local legislator. That's a word I can't get out in the movie fairly early on. As I say, we've all got something that we can do. We can send an email. We can send a tweet. We can go and visit our politicians. We, as I say, it doesn't have to be about dogs. It can be about any vulnerable group or population. But please don't sit back and do nothing and moan. Get off your backside and do something about stuff. It's a great feeling as well to achieve, change, or to be a part of change. And you can absolutely bet your bottom euro, conscious of who I'm talking to, thank you, that there'll be other people thinking the same thing and angry about something like you are, that needs to change or you think is an injustice. So find them on social media. They'll be having these conversations. And now, with X and with Instagram, we can find these conversations, and we don't even have to be in the same country to be angry about something. But you can form these coalitions where people get together, share their skill sets, and actually kind of make change happen, or at least start the conversations to make change happen. Sometimes that's enough, or keep the conversations going, because if they stop, people think either it doesn't matter or it's been solved. Yeah. So you have to keep these conversations, engage politicians. Remember, politicians need stuff to be remembered by, need stuff to make themselves look good. The classic holding the baby photo in the 80s, with politicians. Now they can be photographed with a dog or with an old person. Do you know what I mean? And to be part, or to be seen to be part of changing stuff for the better, and to be kinder and more empathetic and be more compassionate. Us grassroots campaigners, or whoever's trying to change stuff, we have this at our fingertips. All we have to do is get it to the change makers, let them look great being part of changing stuff, and then all celebrate together when it crosses the line and change the law or make a difference, or whatever that solution happens to be. And I will underline the word solution there, because there's no point going up to decision makers, politicians, legislators, going, you should do this, you should do that, you should do that. And they go, well, how are you going to do it then? You go, I don't know. So always, I can't emphasize this enough, always have a solution that's practical, workable, preferably very inexpensive to enforce, and enforceable, because there's no point going like ranting because you look mental. So have your solution. There's a lot of pro bono, fantastic lawyers, solicitors, barristers out there that will help you, especially in the animal welfare world. Have a solution and go, right, we need to work towards that solution, and we'll happily do it. Get some celebrities on board, get media on board, and all of a sudden you ambush the chief decision maker with it's the only really right thing to do. And you have this sort of kind solution that everyone benefits, especially that vulnerable individual, whether it be a dog or a disabled child or an old person.
One other thing that just quickly that came up in the film in terms of it being the right thing to do and an obvious decision, it was both the bill, Victoria's law in America, but also there was one in the UK that was in the process of happening and then was stopped. Yeah. When something is so obviously the right thing to do, it really makes you question what the hell is wrong with people that are trying to block it. And again, makes you think, well, it must come back to money, because people aren't going to be openly saying, oh, no, we don't care about animals in small cages and with diseases. People can't openly say that. So therefore, there has to be backhanders and money involved, one would assume. I know you need to be careful how to say that, but
it's either money or ego or both.
Right.
And I experienced that with my Lucy's Law campaign. You know, who doesn't want to make all breeders accountable? Well, turns out quite a lot of people, and we exposed them all. But with regard to the kept animals bill that was mentioned, it wasn't actually a financial reason. I think it was more of a reputational reason. It's a long story. It's actually not that exciting, but it was enough to derail that whole bill, which had 5 pieces of very good potential legislation on it. The good news is that one of those pieces of legislation, which is the puppy smuggling bill, which you very kindly liked my little post on Facebook the other day, was mentioned in the Lords, and the Dogspiracy movie was mentioned in the Lords. But the puppy smuggling bill, which is to ban the import of puppies under 6 months, which will be a huge progress because they're not cute. So who would want a puppy under, over 6 months? But that has now resurfaced. That was dropped in the bill. It was dropped again because Rishi called the snap election. It was Selene Saxby's private member's bill. It's now Danny Chambers' private member's bill, who's another vet, but he's in the House of Commons, Lib Dem MP for Winchester. And that has made it through the Commons. It's moving through the Lords, like that debate you saw the other day. That was the second reading. And that will probably become law before Christmas or early into next year. Okay. Huge progress, because it's being unopposed. There's no vested interest. There's no disingenuous, apart from one organisation trying to fiddle with it, but they're not fiddling with it enough to sort of, cause it to stop its progress. Yeah. So that will come good. Within that bill, it's also the ban of import of dogs with cropped ears. And also on that bill, which has already become law, is pet theft reform, so making pet theft a specific offence, the banning of export of live cattle and sheep. So there's huge progress going on behind the scenes in Westminster with animal welfare. There's also stuff that isn't happening, banning sow crates and some various other animal welfare laws. But things are moving in the right direction. Right. And it's better to be seen to be kinder to animals than to be obstructive to their animal welfare progress. Yeah. So there are so many animal welfare campaigners and charities, corporate charities as well, grassroots campaigners, who are all pushing in the right direction. And the more we collaborate and the more we work together and the more we share and promote the same solution, consensus, the more likely things are to happen. And I run the all-party parliamentary group for animal welfare, for dog welfare. And our motto almost unofficially is collaboration and kindness. And we bring organizations together and we present solutions, and everyone gets behind these solutions. And it can be anything from the state of UK rescue. It can be the link between animal abuse and domestic violence. It can be what's an assistance dog. Is there a legal definition that fits all assistance dogs? Because some are now emotional support dogs. But can they be allowed in restaurants and public spaces? So there's so much going on. And the more dogs become humanized into our lives, the more legislation needs to adjust and accommodate this progress. So it's all good. It just takes everyone to get involved, from grassroots campaigners to charities to politicians to celebrities and to amazing people like yourself, Hannah, who are in the media. I cannot emphasize enough how much we all thank you and your colleagues for just, as I say, amplifying all this messaging and getting it into other people's ears. Absolutely.
Well, it's my pleasure, of course. And how do people watch Dogspiracy? I can hear listeners going, how do we watch it? How do we watch it?
So if you go to dogspiracy.com, at the moment, it's only available on Apple and Prime Video in the UK and Ireland. Okay. That will change very soon. But just keep an eye on dogspiracy.com. Follow Dogspiracy Official on Instagram.
Perfect.
Or all the socials. But that's your main one, is dogspiracy.com. And there'll be links and information to watch it.
Marvellous.
As soon as possible.
Dr. Marc Abraham OBE, thank you for everything that you do. Lovely to chat with you.
Thank you, Hannah, for everything you do.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.